There are many great horror films out there, whether critically acclaimed or cult classics. However, on the flip side of the horror coin, there are equally just as many awful ones, whether overly produced by ambitious studios, or maybe things just didn't work out. But if you're a true fan of the genre, then you know you've got to watch them all to find the diamonds in the rough. Sometimes that can lead to an unexpected treasure, and sometimes it might just be a single scene that captures all the terror you were looking for. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. At no cost to you, each new subscriber helps us reach our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content for you. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here are 10 terrifying scenes in a bad horror film. Number 1. Don't Look at Me. Old. Based on a comic book, M. Night attempts to bring a unique sci-fi horror to the big screen, and unfortunately fails miserably. The concept is solid. A group of strangers are invited to enjoy a free vacation on a secluded island. The twist? The island is surrounded by a time bubble where everyone ages triple the speed they normally would. They all have some kind of terminal illness, and across the ocean, a secret pharmaceutical lab studies progressive cures in real time, using the sped-up aging process. This would have been perfect for a streaming series, added they found a better cast and took their time to really flesh out the characters beyond the few stereotypes. Sadly, the film does not live up to its potential. However, there is one scene about halfway through the film. As some of the unwilling patients try to escape the island, a woman with brittle bone disease gets stuck in a cave, breaking her limbs and having them heal ultra quickly in the wrong configurations, causing her to appear as mangled monster by the end before finally killing her. Truly a horrific way to go. Number 2. Peekaboo Signs. Another film by M. Night. When the initial trailers for this film dropped, everyone was hyped to see it. Night was riding high off the success of The Sixth Sense, so this had to be good, right? Wrong. While it did have some interesting ideas at first, the awkward nature of the characters, combined with the most ridiculous alien weakness ever put to screen, and it ultimately killed the potential this movie ever had of being great. With that being said, however, one scene in particular sees Meryl hiding in a closet watching news reports about the invading visitors, and we get this found footage scene of an alien popping out of the bushes and walking across the screen. It's so eerily unnerving that it just stuck in people's minds and makes them think this film was scarier than it ever was. Number 3. Death to Paris, House of Wax. A remake of a 50s classic, it's chock full of early 2000s nu metal and a cast of up-and-coming teen horror stars, including one, Paris Hilton. Overall, the film is generic by the numbers, and most of the characters are unlikable or have no personality beyond their stereotypes. But as the film progresses and the two killer brothers at the heart of this film begin to hunt the unsuspecting victims, there's one scene that had everyone talking. Paris and her boyfriend Link are getting ready to make some sweet love in a tent, while waiting for the others to get back. Someone cuts off the music, so Link goes to investigate. While Paris becomes increasingly impatient, the killer sneaks into her tent, and she gets the hell out of there, running to a nearby old factory. A stab to her bare feet, and a couple of chase scenes later, and she is finally cornered, as the killer chucks a broken broom handle at her, piercing her right through the forehead and causing her to bounce off the wall, before tumbling forward and pushing the wooden pole even further through her cranium. Great stuff. Number 4. Feeding Time, The Human Centipede. The Human Centipede films are not great. Maybe the second one, which took some artistic license with its black and white filming style. But overall, it's just shock horror for the sake of being shock horror. If that's your thing, that's fine, but it's more gross than anything. And speaking of gross, The scene we want to talk about today is, of course, one of the most infamous scenes that's always brought up about these films, and that's the feeding scene. If you've never seen these films and somehow never even heard of them, essentially a mad scientist sews a bunch of people together, ass to mouth. The first person in the link must eat the food, digest it, then, well, you get where I'm going with this, right? Definitely a horrifying thought, and most definitely a disgusting, torturous scene in an otherwise awful film franchise. Number 5. Dinner Prep. Wrong Turn. Wrong Turn came out during the mutant inbred killer hype of the early 2000s. A fairly simple plot. Teens on a road trip, have car trouble, get stuck in the middle of nowhere, have to find help. When they split up, they all get killed one by one. There's some genuinely decent kills in this film, but overall, it's a forgettable slasher flick. Except for a scene in the cabin, where we find Jesse and Chris hiding under a bed as their friend Francine is dragged in, thrown on a table, and slowly chopped up and carved apart for dinner. It's gruesome, shown in full detail, you can almost smell it. It's all downhill after that. Number 6. Children in the Corn, Jeepers Creepers 2. The first Jeepers Creepers wasn't spectacular or anything, but at least it was original and fun. The sequel, not so much. The plot mainly revolves around a school bus filled with students heading home after a football game when their tires are blown out by a shuriken made of bones. As the driver investigates, he is snatched up, and so the fun begins, right? Another film filled with cliched stereotypes and actors devoid of any personality. It's just a lot of generic plot points and a predictable finale you see coming miles off. But the standout scene in this film is the cornfield attack scene right at the beginning of the film. It takes place just 3 days after the events of the first film and sees young Billy get snatched up by the creeper right in front of his father and his older brother. It's so intense and well acted, it makes you wonder if someone else was in charge of the rest of the film. Number 7. Secure the Line. Ghost Ship. The early 2000s, where every soundtrack was infused with nu metal, every teen was edgy and an anti-hero, and every horror film was as predictable and dumbed down to allow for a PG-13 rating to bring in younger audiences. This exact same culmination of events is what bogged down Ghost Ship, one of the more generic haunted house type films of the decade. Except this time, it's on a boat. The idea is solid. The ferryman for death needs to collect souls, so he poses as some random guy who spotted some salvage, alerts a salvage crew of his findings, and leads them out to it where he can kill them all in peace. Except he sure takes his sweet-ass time doing so, unlike the opening scene of the film, in which we see the ship's previous crew all having a nice time dancing under the moonlit sky, when one of the sail lines are cut, causing it to whip through the crowd and bifurcate all the poor passengers. After that, all hell breaks loose. The rest of the guests murder each other to get their hands on some sacred gold that's locked in the ship's vault, and yada yada. There was supposedly a sequel in the works, this time taking place on a plane, but haven't heard anything since the initial rumors, so most likely already sleeping with the fishes. Number 8. Monologue cut short. Deep Blue Sea. Samuel L. Jackson is probably one of the best actors of the last few decades, and can deliver one hell of a monologue, as we've seen before in films like Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and 187. And so, in this otherwise disappointing and misguided Frankenstein meets Jaws attempt of a horror film, when Jackson gets up and gets ready to deliver the speech of all speeches, the one you know will invigorate everyone and get them to do their best to make it to safety and survive the nightmare, well, he's suddenly bitten in half by a giant shark. The CGI used to do the scene is pretty hilarious, but the shock value of the moment is great, and the only thing that elevates this turd of a film. Number 9. Hookshot. Deadly Friend. A little-known film directed by the otherwise brilliant Wes Craven, the film is based on the 1985 science fiction novel Friend, written by Diana Henstall. Teen Paul and his mother move into a new house in a small town, and he begins to develop a relationship with his neighbor Samantha, who lives with her abusive alcoholic father, Harry. Paul is also a child prodigy and builds a robotic protector named BB. You can probably see where this is going. After a bunch of shenanigans and some truly outrageous turns of events, Samantha is left brain dead. And of course, there's only one thing to do: interface the microchip with her mind and revive her. Somehow, this gives her super strength and a few other things, because later on, she takes a basketball and throws it so hard at Elvira's head, it explodes into a fountain of gore. The film continues its rampage from then on, but this scene is so incredibly absurd, it's what makes this film memorable in the first place. Number 10. Buckle Up. Carrie, 2013. Almost a shot-for-shot remake of the 1976 classic, this film does nothing new to modernize the story, and even tries to have us believe that Chloe Grace Moretz is ugly. The story lacks any kind of punch. The actors do a so-so job in the roles, and the special effects are needlessly hyped up when CGI was still just getting its shit together. Even the prom scene at the end, the one the film was mostly banking on, feels like every X-Men film we've seen before when Jean Grey had a meltdown. Well, except for the final part of that night. Carrie's tormentor, Chrissy Hargensen, gets her full comeuppance when she tries to run Carrie over with her car. Carrie uses her telekinetic abilities to create a shield around her, to which the car slams into it, and in all its slow-motion glory, we watch Chrissy's face go through the windshield and get sliced to pieces. It's fantastic and quite cathartic. Thanks for checking out the video. What's your all-time favorite spooky scene? Let us know in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to ring that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X at StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, linked below in the description. I've been your host, Jamie. See you at the movies.